Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Boydie 73 here in the Cerberus was not having a good one, and it's all because of this matchmaker. Can you tell me what's wrong with this picture? It's not the matchmaking spread. The Cerberus is the Commonwealth Tier 10 heavy cruiser. So he is top tier with a 2-tier matchmaking spread. There are Tier 8s for him to feast upon. It didn't take Boydie long to notice, and he wasn't the only one. I'll give you a clue, if you haven't already noticed yourself. His team have managed to sneak an extra carrier in. As well as the Tier 8 cargo, his team have also managed to sneak a hybrid in, the Tier 9 Kearsarge. But even that's not the problem. I mean, under normal circumstances it would be. But the enemy team haven't just managed to sneak one extra carrier in. They've sneaked in 6. As well as the Tier 8 carrier, the enemy team have 6 hybrids. This is a 9 carrier battle. That one destroyer on Boydie's team, the L'Aventurier, he must be sweating bullets. And it's French, so it doesn't even have a smoke screen. And it's unlikely to be a particularly pleasant experience for everybody else on the team either. Boydie hasn't even noticed how bad it is. He thinks this is a 6-carrier battle. He hasn't realised, although he did later, that the Commissar on the enemy team is also a hybrid. So the enemy team have 7 carriers, his team has 2. And 2 would be bad enough, but 7... Put the vodka down and step away from the keyboard, Wargaming. You're drunk. Oh, and both teams have radar as well. The enemy team have an Alaska, and Boydie's team has Worcester. So who's going to be brave and go for the cap circles? What the hell? Well, here they come. Oh, and it looks like Boydie's the first one spotted, which is generally a bad news if you're in a cruiser. Fortunately, the Cerberus does have a smokescreen. And he's comfortably outside of radar range. Here they come. Oh my god, look at this. Of course, the downside of slowing down to stay in smoke just makes you an easy target for aircraft that have already begun their attack run. He's already lost half of his health. So I imagine everybody's going to be finding an island and hugging it like their life depends on it. Because it does. You know what this is? This is like World of Tanks, back when artillery had arm-piercing shells and could one-shot Tier 10 heavy tanks. Something that happened to me on more than one occasion, particularly for some reason when I was in my IS-7. It's like that thing was an artillery armour-piercing magnet. Remember, Wargaming's line regarding artillery at the time was that artillery prevented camping. The theory being that if you were just camping behind a rock, stationary artillery would get you, and would therefore force you to move out and play aggressively. But the exact opposite was in fact what happened. If you did try to play aggressively, you just got one-shotted by artillery. So what everybody did was camp behind rocks. I remember in a 3 artillery battle in my IS-7 once, I spent the entire game hiding behind a rock. Because the second I moved out and got spotted, artillery was pre-aimed on my position and would drop an armour-piercing bomb on my head. And that's exactly what World of Warships is like when you've got this many carriers in play. Everybody's either hugging an island, or they're cruising the back of the map, or they're hiding in smoke, because nobody wants to take the risk, or the consequences, like Boydie here, of being the first one spotted. Fun and exciting gameplay for all the family. There is an upside to having this many hybrids on the enemy team though, because if they're launching aircraft, they're not firing at you with their guns. It's not much of a consolation. But it's all we've got. So just in case you haven't told them all up yet, as well as the Barbados, which is the actual Tier 8 carrier, the enemy team have 3 Kearsarges, a Commissar and 2 Hildebrands. Aside from the fact that all of these guys, while they're controlling aircraft, they're not going to be shooting at anybody. The other thing, of course, is that while they are controlling aircraft, they're steering using the minimap autopilot, which does mean that they're going to be sailing in straight lines on the same course and speed, rather than actually manoeuvring and dodging incoming shots and torpedoes, which is a good thing for Boydie's team. In fact, the Jean Bart on the team has already claimed a victim. Unfortunately, it wasn't one of the hybrids, it was the enemy Atago. But the other thing about navigating using the minimap autopilot is that it's very difficult to actually exert map control beyond the map control that you do get from having dominance of the air. Complex maneuvers are just not possible when you're moving to a waypoint on the minimap and focusing on the air squadron that you're controlling. And that's not an insignificant factor either. I mean, the enemy team were able to take the cap at Charlie fairly early on, mostly because all of Boydie's team were going, fuck that, and hiding behind islands, just like Boydie is still doing now because he knows what's good for him. But it's not going to be so easy for them to maintain control. In fact, the cap at Charlie is already under threat. And while nobody's been able to seize any of the other two cap circles, the enemy team, well, look at them all. They're all just sailing around on autopilot in the bottom southwest corner of the map, with a couple of exceptions. But those exceptions are heavily outnumbered. The other thing about hybrids, I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses here, but look at all the aircraft. Nobody enjoys this. But you can at least set them on fire, unlike actual aircraft carriers in this game, which have automatic damage control that lasts an entire minute, and then goes on a 20-second cooldown, and then it's up again. Basically impossible to set them on fire. Hybrids, however, don't get that. I realise that's not a huge consolation. Oh, so you're saying this isn't as bad as it looks, Jingles, because all of the enemy team, bar the actual carrier, can be set on fire, the same as everybody else. Yeah, I know. I am kind of clutching at straws here. But what is going to prove significant here is the fact that more than half of the enemy team are, in fact, steering using minimap waypoints. I mean, the Kearsarge over there was sitting broadside on in open water. And okay, he's managed to go undetected, but he's not the only person on the enemy team playing like this. And given flat broadside in open water in a target as big as that is just begging for a paddling. Boydie is no doubt looking very nervously at his smoke consumable right now, thinking, how many more charges of this do I have? You've got 2 more, Boydie. Make them count. 7 minutes into the game now, and basically 90% of Boydie's team are either staying as far back as they possibly can, hiding in smoke, or hugging islands. With the one exception, all the way over there on the eastern flank. The team's Wisconsin is going after the enemy commissar parked behind that extreme southeastern island. And here we go, more shots at broadside targets. Note that the enemy team have effectively given up all map control now. They're all just sitting there in the southwest on autopilot, cycling their aircraft. Although they are continuing to inflict casualties, the enemy, or one of the enemy Hildebrands, has just managed to torpedo and sink the friendly Los Andes. Oh, by some miracle, because remember, the enemy team are the ones with 7 carriers, not Boydie's team, but the enemy Akazuki just managed to get himself air spotted. And it came at the worst possible time, because he was right in front of a Takahashi, an Almirante Grau, and the L'Aventurier at the time, so yeah, he didn't survive very long. One of the enemy Kearsarges there, clearly sailing on autopilot, clearly controlling an aircraft squadron somewhere and just paying no attention whatsoever to what's actually happening to his ship. The friendly Yamato's just gone down, 18 kilometres to the rear. With this matchmaking, hiding at the back doesn't do you any good. But the enemy Kearsarge, who was sailing on autopilot there, finished off, believe it or not, by the friendly Kearsarge, that rare breed of hybrid player who understands that the 16-inch guns on the ship are not just there for show. If you look at the mini-map down in the southeast corner, the Wisconsin on the team, he's about to get line of fire on the Commissar, which is probably not going to be great news for the Commissar. The thing is, if the Commissar, I mean, he's left it way too late. He's happily sitting behind the island, cycling his aircraft. If he runs from the Wisconsin, he's given broadside to the Jean Bart B to the north, so no matter which way he goes, he's a dead man. And when they nail that Commissar, the entire remainder of the enemy team are all down here, sailing around on autopilot in the bottom southwest corner of the map. Meanwhile, with the Cap at Charlie having long since fallen in control of his team, Boydie is here in the Cap at Alpha doing pretty much exactly the same thing. while other members of his team are about to successfully flip the cap at Bravo. And the Wisconsin, yep, as predicted, has just nailed the Commissar, which means the entire enemy team, and there's still more than a few of them, are now caught in a crossfire, with battleships to their east, and all of the cruisers up here to the north. Boydie, no doubt, very anxiously looking at that smoke consumable. He's got 54 seconds left, and getting shot at by one of the few things remaining on the enemy team, the Alaska over there, that can't launch aircraft at him. He's still air spotted, of course, and he is now, of course, also starting to attract actual fire from all directions. Yeah, the enemy team do still have a Burgoyne and a Yamato as well. There's a nice little island up ahead he can hide behind though. Although he's going to want to be careful to not get so close that he's going to be vulnerable to the Alaska's radar. And the Alaska will still have, very probably... Boydie, what did that island ever do to you? But yes, the Alaska is almost certainly still going to have all charges of his radar. Because I think this is the closest he's ever been to an enemy ship in this entire battle. Well, the enemy Alaska's hugging the island over there like his life depends on it, because, well, it does. But he's just outside of radar range of Boydie, and Boydie's crawling smoke is back up again. The Cerberus does get an excellent long-duration crawling smoke, by the way. I mean, this thing lasts slightly more than 2 minutes. It's absolutely amazing. Fairly long cooldown, but a very, very long duration. And as long as he can stay outside of the Alaska's radar, he can really put this thing to work. Oh, there's, look, an actual aircraft carrier. Waste of time firing high explosive at it. I mean, high explosive will still do damage, but it isn't going to set any fires. Ironically enough, extremely large caliber, like battleship armor piercing, just tends to over-penetrate on those things. Or somehow at the same time also ricochet. Because reasons. Heavy cruiser armor piercing, however, like the Cerberus's 12 8-inch guns, yeah, not so much. Nice big juicy broadside to shoot at on the Yamato. He's unlikely to get any citadels, but I mean, the Yamato's a big target. And it's an even bigger target when it's sailing broadside. There's somebody coming to share the smoke screen. Looks like, yeah, it's the Takahashi. Completely understandable, of course. Although you're going to want to slow down a bit. 1/4 throttle. Otherwise you're going to outrun it. Oh, team have just lost their Jean Bart, taken down by the enemy Burgoyne. Brave move there from the friendly Worcester, charging forward in open water with his radar on. What are you talking about, Jingles? The Worcester's an AA powerhouse. Are you new here? But he's rushing up to the island there to get maximum use out of his radar coverage. And it's probably the first time he's had to use his radar in this game as well. Boydie, by the way, has managed to get his reload down. I mean, the base reload on the Cerberus's 12 8-inch guns is 10.5 seconds. Oh, here comes a Hildebrand. Do you think it's possible he's remembered what his guns are for? Of course, at this range, smokescreen or not, the smoke firing penalty ensures that Boydie's going to get spotted. But the thing is, well, he's got torpedoes away, and the Hildebrand doesn't actually appear to be using his guns anyway, despite the fact that Boydie is given a nice big flat broadside. But, yeah, there's a torpedo here. Oh, the Hildebrand just got smashed. See, the thing is, even though the Cerberus does technically have a 10.5 second reload on its 12 8-inch guns, with things like the Fearless Brawler skill active, I think that's what it was, an Adrenaline Rush, Boydie's actually got this reload down to, I think, 7.2, 7.3 seconds. Which, while that's still not as fast as the 5-second reload on something like the Des Moines, the fact that the Cerberus does have an extra turret, and therefore 3 more guns, probably puts its actual damage per minute at the same level, which is pretty damn impressive. And while it doesn't get radar, like the Des Moines doesn't get no 2+ minute crawling smoke screen either. The only real downside to the Cerberus's guns is the turret rotation speed. It's pretty bad. These things take 30 seconds to rotate 180 degrees, which means you do kind of need to plan ahead. And you know what they say, no plan survives contact with the enemy. However, under these circumstances, I mean, when you know exactly where everybody is, it's not difficult to take advantage of the firepower that the Cerberus offers. It's also pretty nippy. I mean, it's not quite up to the manoeuvrability standards of British light cruisers, but it's not that far behind. I've just unlocked the Cerberus about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago. It's really good. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think it's possible that the remaining ships on the enemy team are not on autopilot anymore. They're running out of places to run to. 5 enemies remaining, 4 of them visible. Naturally, the carrier, which is bigger than all of them, is the last one to get spotted because wargaming reasons. But even though they're all desperately trying to escape into the next map, Boydie's team reach 1,000 points because the enemy team completely gave up a map control. And they gave up map control because while at the start of the match it didn't look like anybody on Boydie's team was going to be having an awful lot of fun for the next 15 minutes. But the enemy teams, more than half of them sailing around on autopilot, while almost completely ignoring those rather dangerous guns that a lot of them were equipped with, meant that, well, it was always going to be an emotional first 5 or 7 minutes of the battle, but as long as Boydie's team could withstand the initial aircraft onslaught, there was actually very little chance they were ever going to lose this. Still doesn't excuse the matchmaking, though. I mean, 7 carriers on one team. Go home wargaming, you're drunk. That was absolutely disgusting. Made for an amusing video, though. And despite the victory, I'm sure that's not an experience that Boydie is in any rush to repeat. But I hope you all enjoyed watching him suffer, because that's it for today. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.